Again, it's a rich thing.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to build an intelligent financial assistant in Python. So let us get right into it. Now, before we get into actual coding, I want to show you what we're going to end up with. So I have this chatbot here, this financial assistant, which is already trained. And I can do stuff like say hello. It's going to say, hey, Florian. Then I can say, please plot a stock for me. And those are not hard-coded inputs, by the way. So enter ticker symbol, AAPL for Apple. Starting day is going to be, I don't know, 18th of March 2020. And then we're going to get this plot, this candlestick chart here. Then if I, okay, now it's a little bit lagging. There you go. If I now stop this, I can again proceed with hello. And I can do show my stocks, your portfolio. It's going to say what I have. How much is it worth? And it's thinking, it says your portfolio is worth whatever. So this is what we're going to build today, and you can add as many functionalities as you want to. Alright, so for this project, we're going to need a bunch of external libraries that we first need to install. And for this, we're going to open up a command line, CMD in my case, and we're going to install them using pip. So if you're on Linux, you use pip or pip3. If you're on Windows, you use pip. On Mac, I think it's similar. So pip install, and then we first start with Neural Intents. This is going to be the fundamental module in today's video, because that is the library that I have written myself to make it easy to create chatbots and AI assistants without having to go through the machine learning and neural network declaration on your own. So if you're interested in what is happening behind the scenes, you can just go to my GitHub, github.com/neural9, and you can look at the code in Neural Intents. We're going to use that library that makes it easier for us to create such chatbots. So pip install Neural Intents like that. Then we're also going to need matplotlib for the visualizations. We're going to need MPL Finance for the candlestick charts. We're going to need pandas for working with data frames, and we're going to need pandas minus data reader to get the data from the Yahoo Finance API. The other libraries we're going to need are part of the core Python stack. So first of all, we're going to say from Neural Intents import generic assistant. Then we're going to say import matplotlib.pyplot splt. Then we're going to import pandas as pd, and we're going to import pandas data reader as web, and we're going to import MPL Finance as MPF. And I think that's it for the external modules. We then also need Pickle. So we're going to import Pickle for serialization. And we're going to import sys in order to exit the script when it's necessary. So, and of course, one more thing, we need to import datetime as DT. There you go. So those are the imports. Now, what our assistant is going to need is some sort of guideline that tells it how to react or what to say when we input a certain type of message. So let's say I say something like, hey, hi, hello. Then of course I want the chatbot or the assistant to answer with a greeting. If I say something like, please plot the stock or please show my portfolio, I want the chatbot or the assistant to take that action. However, I don't want to hard code all the variations of how I could phrase that. So if I say something like, please plot a stock for me, that should be equally good as saying plot a stock or anything similar to that. So we don't want to have to input all the variations of that statement manually, and we don't want to hard code that. In order to make that happen, we need to have a set of sample inputs, and we need to have intents. We need to have categories. Now, I'm going to show you a JSON file now. Please don't despair, because the JSON file is quite simple. I'm going to show it to you and tell you how it's structured. I'm not going to type it all with you here, because that would just waste time. It looks large, but don't despair because of that. This is the JSON file, but it's very, very simple, and you can just remove and add individual things. So what we have here is this basic intents object. And as you can see, everything below that just repeats. So it's not too complicated. You have intents, then you have the same set of things below. It's always the same. And how it is structured is we have intents, and then this intents list here, this intents object, is actually a list of individual intents. Each intent has a tag, which is, you could say, the category, for example, greetings, or plot the chart, or add something to my portfolio, remove something from my portfolio, show my portfolio, and so on. And then we have the patterns. The patterns are sample inputs. So we said that we don't want to hard code it, which means that if I provide enough samples, like I want you to plot a stock price, or please plot a chart, plot a stock price, show me a stock price chart, and so on. If we have enough of those inputs, it's going to recognize, using machine learning, which input, which message from the user is similar to those patterns. And if it recognizes that the pattern is similar, it's going to see, okay, this is the plot chart intent. My response is going to be this. Now, we're not going to work too much with responses, which is why I most of the time don't have anything important in here, because we're going to use the tag of the intent in order to recognize what it wants us to do. By the way, we can remove the content set here. You can ignore that. This is not important. This is from an old project. However, this is the structure of the intents file. You can create your own intent file however you want. I can show you here. I have the categories greetings, plot chart, add portfolio, remove portfolio, show portfolio, stock price, portfolio worth, portfolio gains, and buy. You can add and remove whatever you want. So maybe you just want a chatbot that is going to greet you and plot stock prices. Then you don't need anything more than that. What you do is you provide patterns, which are sample inputs. And if you want responses, you can also leave that empty. The important thing is that you have tag and patterns. And of course, we can make this a little bit more beautiful by just saying reformat code here, but that looks a little bit larger, so I didn't do that. This is how this looks as a JSON file: intents, tag, patterns, responses, tag, pattern, responses, and so on. This is what we're going to need. We need a JSON file that is structured like that. You can have 5 intents, you can have 1,000 intents, you can have 2 intents, you can have 1 intent, which is kind of useless. But that is your decision, how you structure your intent file. Depending on what you want from your financial assistant, you need to put that information in here. This is no functionality. This is just recognizing what you want. In the patterns, you have to enter a bunch of different ways to phrase what you actually want. And once you have that, you can start with the coding. So I'm going to first show you how the assistant basically works, and then we're going to implement the functions of the individual intents. So in order to create an assistant, you just say assistant, or whatever you want to call it, equals generic assistant. And this generic assistant now takes parameters. First of all, it needs an intents file or an intents object. In our case, we just have the intents.json file that I just showed you. It's not too complicated, whatever you want to put into it. And then you can, if you want, also specify additional things. Now, if you don't specify additional things, it's going to take the responses from the JSON file. But what you can do with that assistant is, let me first show you how you actually request something from that assistant. If you have that assistant, what you do is you train it. So you say assistant.train model. This is all happening in the background. This is what Neural Intents does for you automatically. It trains the model based on the intents file. So it's going to recognize patterns and intents. Once this is done, what you can do is, of course, you can save them all. So you can say assistant.save model, and then you can load the model as well. But that's just something on the side. Once the model is trained and you have it trained, you can just go ahead and say assistant.request, and you can pass a message like, hello, I want to see my portfolio, or whatever you want to do here. Now, once you call this request function here, you're either going to get a response if you don't have any mappings, or you can map a function to the intent. How do you do that? You specify a dictionary, which you can call mappings, for example. And mappings is just going to be a dictionary that maps an intent type to a function. So what I can do here is, we had the intent greetings, which is the tag that's important. You always need to specify the tag, so greetings in this case. We have greetings, and if the neural network, if the assistant recognizes that the message that I now entered belongs to greetings, then call this function here. So I can define a function up here, my function, and it can do something. Oh, I coded too much in Go, I guess. Def my function. We're in Python, so we use colons. And then we pass here. So this is just a basic function. If I want this function to be called whenever greetings is recognized, then I pass my function here, but not by calling it, by just referring to it. And then I have to take these mappings here and pass them to the generic assistant by saying intent methods equals mappings, like that. And now every time I request and pass a message like hello, for example, it's going to recognize, okay, hello belongs to greetings, which means that I have to do greetings. Oh, greetings is mapped to my function, so it's going to call my function. This is the basic functionality of the neural intents module. All right, so everything else that we need to do now is just coding the individual functionalities for the different intents. So in my case, I have stuff like plotting charts, adding to portfolio, removing from it, showing it, and so on. And you can do whatever you want here. You can also just have a chatbot that you want to, web scrape some news about a company for you. You have to find the code yourself and just input it there. I'm going to show you those different functionalities here. But on my channel, I have different tutorials like predicting stock prices, like news summarizer, like all the different projects. You can just take them and put them in here. You just need one function, one intent, and that's it. You can scale this module up however you want. So I'm going to delete all this down here because we don't need it yet. First of all, we're going to start with a function. So the first one, or actually before we start with the functions, we need a portfolio. So we're going to say portfolio. It's just going to be a basic dictionary, which is going to have as a key the company, for example, Apple, or the ticker symbol, and then as a value, how many shares I have from that company, for example. This is just an imaginary portfolio. It's not my portfolio. So let's say we have 20 Apple shares. Let's say we have 5 Tesla shares, and let's say we have, 10 Goldman Sachs shares, like that. This is the portfolio, and now what I want to do is I want to save that portfolio into a file. So I want to serialize it into a pickle file. And in order to do that, I'm just going to say with open, and I'm going to choose a file which I'm going to call portfolio.pkl. Open that in writing bytes, sf, and we're going to say f dot, or actually, how do we do that? We say pickle.dump, and we dump the portfolio into the file. There you go. So this is how you do it, and now we can run this immediately because later on we're just going to load it and save it back into that. This is just the initialization. I think it's still loading all the modules. Let's wait a little bit. There you go. And now we have this portfolio.pkl file. So I can delete this line here, and I can delete, I don't have to delete it. I can actually use this as an opening. So I can say open the portfolio file sf, and then I'm going to say portfolio equals pickle load f, like that. And then I can go ahead and say print portfolio. If I do that now, I already have it in a file, so I don't have to have it just as an object during runtime. I have this portfolio saved into a file, so I can load it, change it, and save it back into the file, which is what the assistant is going to do. So once we have that, this is how we load the portfolio when we start the script. Then we're going to have a basic function, which is just going to be save portfolio. So save is not going to be a command. It's just going to happen as a byproduct of changing something. So save portfolio is going to be with open portfolio pkl in writing bytes sf pickle dot dump the portfolio into the file. So if we change something, we're going to save it like that. So let's see, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add something to the portfolio. So whenever we trigger the add something or add stock or add something to the portfolio intent, we're going to call this add portfolio function here. And we're not just going to execute it, we're going to ask for some further input. But everything that happens inside of that function is going to be hard-coded. So it's going to ask for what we want to do and so on, but we're going to have this hard-coded. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask for the ticker symbol. We're going to say, okay, which stock do you want to add? And we're going to pass that, and then we're going to ask for the amount, and we're going to say, okay, which amount, or what amount, or let's say how many shares do you want to add? Maybe I shouldn't be using title case here. Why am I doing this? What stock do you want to add? All right, and now the important thing is that we need to take care, if the stock is already in the portfolio, we don't want to overwrite the value, we want to increase it. So we're going to say if the ticker is part of the portfolio.keys, so if we already have a stock like that in the portfolio, we're just going to increase it. So we're going to say portfolio ticker is going to be plus equal amount. Otherwise, if it's not in there, we're going to create a new field by saying portfolio ticker is exactly the amount. Like that. Yeah, and in the end, of course, we need to save the portfolio. Then we're also going to implement the remove portfolio function here. And this is going to be quite similar. We're going to ask again for the ticker. We're going to say ticker equals input. Which stock do you want to remove? And we're going to ask for the ticker symbol here, then the amount. Or actually, we don't want to remove it. Which stock do we want to sell is probably better because we don't have to remove all of this, all of the individual shares. And we're going to say amount equals how many shares do you want to sell? That's it. And then we're going to say if the ticker is actually in the portfolio keys, portfolio.keys, then we're going to allow it to be removed. So we're going to say, or actually we need to first check for the amount. So we're going to say if the ticker is part of the portfolio, if we already have that stock, we're going to check if we have the amount that this user is trying to sell. So we're going to say if the amount is less or equal to portfolio ticker, then we're going to allow it. So then we're going to say portfolio ticker minus equals amount. And we're going to save the portfolio. Otherwise, we're going to print you don't have enough shares. And if this security is not even in the portfolio, we're going to say you don't own any shares of, and then ticker. And last but not least, simple function show portfolio is going to be def show portfolio. And we're going to print your portfolio for ticker in portfolio. We're going, or actually portfolio.keys. We're going to say print f-string you own portfolio of that particular ticker symbol, shares of the actual ticker. What's the problem here? Oh, like that. So we get the actual amount from the portfolio. We say you own that amount, shares of that particular company. And that's actually it. So now let's go ahead and create another function which is going to calculate the actual worth of the portfolio, because we have an intent that is called portfolio worth, and this is asking how much is my portfolio worth. So if the investor is asking that, the assistant should say, okay, I'm calculating the value and this is the number. So we're going to say def portfolio worth, and we're going to start with the sum being 0, and then we're just going to iterate over the tickers. So we're going to say for ticker in portfolio keys, and then we're going to load the data from the Yahoo Finance API. We're going to get the last value and we're going to add that to the sum. So we're going to say data equals web.datareader of that particular ticker from the Yahoo Finance API. And the price is going to be data close.ilog -1, which is the last value. And then we're going to say sum plus equals price. In the end, we're going to say print f string, and we're going to say your portfolio is worth some US dollars. The next function that we're going to implement is the portfolio gains function. This is the next intent, and it's actually asking how is my portfolio performing, so compare it to a date in the past. Now you can come up with a sophisticated algorithm that also takes into account that you sold and bought in between, but we're just going to compare, for the sake of this video, the stocks that I own right now, the value that they have right now compared to the value that they would have or that they had in the past, the exact stocks that we own right now. So I'm going to say portfolio gains, and we're going to say string, or actually starting date is going to be input, and we're going to say enter a date for comparison, and we're going to use the date format of pandas, which is year, month, day. This is just so the user knows the format. And then we're going to start with a sum now being 0 and a sum then being 0. And we're going to try, because sometimes on some days there's not going to be any trading, and in such a case we're going to get an index error. So if we choose a day that there was no trading on, we're just going to say, okay, that day there was no trading on it, so we cannot look up the price there. But if there was a day like that, or actually let's go ahead and just make the exception handling first, except index error pass for now, and in here we're now going to say, okay, try for every ticker in the portfolio keys, we're going to say the data equals web.datareader of the ticker from the Yahoo Finance API, and we're going to get all the data, and we're going to say the price now is just the same thing, so data close ilog -1, and the price then is going to be a query, a pandas query, so price then is going to be data dot location, and here we're going to say the location where the data dot index is going to be the same as the starting date, so the index is the date, and if we found that column, we're going to get the close value or the closing values, and from the values 0. There you go. So that's the price then, and then we're just going to go ahead and say sum now plus equals price now, sum then just equals price then. There you go. And of course we need to print it in the end. So when we're done, we're just going to say print your portfolio, or actually let's do it with gains. So we're going to say relative gains are going to be, and we need to do an f string. The relative gains are, of course, what is the portfolio right now divided by what it was worth times 100. So we're going to just say sum now, or actually we need to put that into parentheses here, sum now minus sum then. So we're only interested in the actual profit. Sum now minus sum then divided by sum then. And the result that we have here is going to be taken times 100. Relative gains are going to be that number %, and the absolute gains are just going to be sum now minus sum then in US dollars. There you go. And the error handling is, of course, also important. We're just going to say there was no trading on this day. There you go. Now, looking at the intents file, we now have two more intents that we have to cover. First of all, the buy, and second of all, the plot chart. And also, if we want to, you can also do the greetings, but that's not necessary because we have responses here. But we're going to do the plot chart next. So we're going to have this function down here, which is going to be def plot chart. And this is just going to be a very basic candlestick chart. So we're going to say ticker equals input, choose a ticker symbol, whatever. And we also need a starting date. So starting date equals, or actually let's say starting string because we need to convert it to a date. Starting string equals input, choose a starting date. This time the format is going to be different because here we have not just pandas, we have a different format here. So we have the actual data reader format that we need to pass here, or we need to first convert it into a datetime object. That's what I'm saying. And the format here is actually day, day, month, month, year, 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 like that. Might be a bit confusing. You can change that if you want to. And then we're going to say plt style.use. You can choose a style that you want to use. I'm going to use dark background because that's the Neural 9 style. And then we're going to define the start date. So start is going to be dt datetime, and we're going to use a function called strptime. I don't know if that means strip time or I don't know, whatever that is. It's definitely converting a string to a date. So we need to pass a date string, which is going to be our starting string, and then we need to pass a format. And the format is going to just be %d, %m, and %uppercase y. That's important. And the end is going to be simple. The end is just dt datetime dot now. So this is the range that we're going to plot. We first need to get the data. We're going to say data equals web data reader ticker from the Yahoo Finance API start end. There you go. So that's the data. And we now need to do some colors first because I don't like the basic color schemes of MPL Finance. So we're going to do colors equals mpf.make market colors. And we're going to say, okay, if the stock is going up, that has to be green. I don't accept anything except for green when a stock is going up, which is 00FF00. When it's going down, I don't accept anything but red. So down is going to be FF0000. And the rest is going to be just inherited. So wicket, not wicket, what the fuck? Wick equals inherit. And what was the other thing? Edge is also inherit. I don't even know what that means, to be honest. But inherit basically means take it from the parent theme, so I don't really care about it. One thing that's important is volume has to be in, so we want to see the volume. And in, of course, has to be a string. And those are the colors. We now have to make a style out of them, so MPF style. And of course, you can just skip that part if you're not interested in styling. But MPF style is going to be mpf.make MPF style. And we're going to take the base MPF style. So the base MPF style is going to be the style called night clouds. And I'm going to add the market colors are going to be the colors that we just defined. There you go. And finally, we're going to say mpf.plot. We're going to plot the data. Type of the plot is going to be a candlestick chart. And the style is going to be the MPF style. And the volume is going to be true. That is it. And last but not least, we're going to define the by function. This is going to be very simple. Def by is going to be print goodbye or whatever you want to say. And then sys exit 0. All right, so that's all we need. I'm 100% sure that it won't work first try, but still we're going to start creating the assistant now. We're going to say assistant equals generic assistant as I showed you in the beginning. The intents JSON file is the intents JSON file. And the mappings, oh yeah, we need to define the mappings first. The mappings is going to be just a basic dictionary which maps intents to functions. So if we have the intent, what do we have here? If we have plot chart, it is going to be plot chart. Surprise. As I said, or I think I said, you don't need to choose the same name, but it makes things easier in the end. If we have, of course, we don't use equals, we use colon. If we have the intent, what is it called? Add portfolio, we're going to have the function add portfolio. We're not calling the functions, we're passing them. If we have remove portfolio, we're going to have the function remove portfolio. If we have show portfolio, we're going to have the function show portfolio. If we have, what do we have here? Plot chart, portfolio gains, portfolio worth. Let's do portfolio worth. If we have that, we're going to call portfolio worth. If we have portfolio gains, we're going to have portfolio gains. And if we have plot chart, we're going to have plot. Oh, we actually have that already. So did we have everything here? Do we have everything? Seems like it. We don't need save portfolio. We only need by in the end as well. By is going to be by. Then we're passing here as intent methods. We're going to pass this mappings dictionary so that the assistant knows, okay, if I get those intents as a result, then I have to call these functions. So once we have that, of course, you can also choose a name. I didn't mention that, but if you want, you can choose a name. So you can call this, do I have to pass a keyword name though? I think we don't have to pass the keyword name. We can actually remove the intents method here because mappings is anyway the second parameter, and then we can just say financial assistant model, or call it whatever you want. And now we're going to say assistant.train model, assistant.save model. And when this is done, we can say while true, message is going to be the user input. And the answer from the assistant is going to be assistant.requestMessage. And that's actually it. So I'm not sure how long it's going to train. I'm going to run this, and if it takes too long, I'm going to just cut it out from the video or do a time lapse or anything like that, but it shouldn't take too long. It would be a surprise to me if we didn't make any mistakes at all, but I mean, it could happen. After all, it is my module and I know how to use it. So let's see, it should be done any moment. There you go. Let's do a basic hello. Hello, sir. There you go. So show my portfolio. Oh, it actually works. Wow. Show me the price of a stock. Apple. Oh, actually, this was not a functionality that I implemented, right? Did I have something like that? Oh, stock price. Actually, I didn't implement that intent. Doesn't matter. You can do it if you want to. So now it recognized actually that I want to plot a stock price, which is also fine. So let's go ahead and say 17th of March 2020. There you go. This is the candlestick chart. We can, of course, also zoom into it. There you go. So then I can say, okay, add a stock to my portfolio. Which stock do you want to add? Let's say I want to add Facebook. How many shares? 8. Okay, then I want to also add some more Apple stocks. Add a stock. I want to add Apple. 10 shares. Oh, we have a problem here. What is the problem here? How many shares do you want to add? We got the problem unsupported operand types for plus equals int and string. Oh, that is important. Yes, okay, that's important. We need to go to the add portfolio thing and we need to say integer of amount, because amount, what we input here is a string. So if we assign it, that's fine. But if we actually that's not fine, because it's not going to be a string. It's not going to be an integer, it's going to be a string. So we always need to take care of that. If we remove something, that should be the case as well. So we need to make sure this is an integer. Yeah, there you go. So that should work. But all in all, it actually worked quite good, or quite well. You can also see that we now have this model here, this assistant model that we can load if we want to. So actually, let's do that. We don't have to train it again. We can go down here, and instead of training it, I hope this works, we're going to say assistant.loadModel. If it doesn't work, you're going to have to do it in a different way, but I think it should work. Never tested this feature actually, but it should work. Let's just wait for the module to load. And oh, maybe it's already loaded and it doesn't tell me because it's not training. So let's try to say hello. No, it's not working. It actually works. Wow. Okay, that's a surprise. It's an up and down here. Okay, it works. So let's do it again. Add something to my portfolio. I'm going to add Apple, and I'm going to add 20 shares here. So show my portfolio now. We can now see I have 8 shares of Facebook. Now, if I'm not mistaken, since we added 8 shares of Facebook and it was a string, if I now add something, it should give me another exception, but not because the program does not work, but because the data is already a string. So if I say add a stock, and I want to add more Facebook, and I want to add, let's say 9, yeah, it's going to crash. Okay, but that's not because the script doesn't work, it's because it didn't work. Now, if I delete the portfolio, do it again, it's going to work. So this is how you build a simple financial assistant in Python. So that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video and bye.